Hey, everybody, welcome to the Blacklist. This show is all about how the elite rose to power. And today we have Danny Singson. Danny, please give us a 60-second introduction about who you are and kind of what you do, and then we'll take it from there.
Awesome, Ulysses. I'm Danny Singson. I run and operate, founder and CEO of Extreme One Financial. We're headquartered out of the San Francisco Bay Area, and
Yep.
essentially we do one thing really, really well, and I believe that we're the best in the world at doing it, and that's helping people eliminate risk, fees, and taxes when it comes to how they save money, park money, grow for the future, retirement, etc. So all different kinds of applications, but that's what we do.
And talk about like your transition from, the police force to now this, because you made the
Yeah,
transition, and honestly, I
crazy.
think it was a good decision.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to be in law enforcement. I wanted to be a cop all my life. So I grew up as a little boy, wearing the police costumes and all these things. I was just dreaming about it because I wanted to serve other people, and I thought that that was the career path that I was gonna dive into, and I did. So I got started right when I was 20 and a half years old. I was one of the youngest officers that was hired into the department, and loved it. It was my dream career. And then about maybe 12, 15 years into my career, it just became a long-ass job.
Yeah, yeah.
So I met the world of politics and, just all the crazy internal things that no one ever talks about. And then I started to realize that the men and women that were, quote unquote, retiring from my industry,
Yeah.
they weren't much further ahead, than I was financially, even in my early 20s. And I said, man, if that's going to be me, no, thank you. And I
Yep,
thought to
yep.
myself, man, I don't want to end up like that. So if I don't want to end up like that, I got to do something about it. And so I transitioned. I always wanted to learn more about money, as we all know that most people don't. We don't learn money in school.
Right.
And I always wanted to figure out what were the top 1%ers doing, what was their knowledge that I don't know. So I became obsessed with personal finance, how not to pay taxes. And
Yep.
I'm a cheap Asian guy, man. I want to keep the most amount of money in my pocket, right? Versus
Yeah.
give it away to Uncle Sam if need be. So it was a beautiful transition, and I got a whole bunch of crap leaving the department.
I bet.
People thought, are you kidding me? Because that's not a career path that you actually leave.
Right.
People get a pension, they're lifers, right? 20 plus years, 30 years. And I thought, man, I really believe that I was worth more than my paycheck.
Yeah, yeah.
And the rest was history.
So how are you
Yeah.
different from other people in your same field and industry?
Yeah, it's interesting because our mantra, like I mentioned, is ERFT. That's an acronym that stands for eliminating risk, fees, and taxes.
Yeah.
If you think about in the finance world, your typical advisor or financial guy is doing the opposite, right? They're trying to add risk,
Right.
fees, and taxes. And so the one of the funny thing is that there's a ton of people doing what I do in my industry, but we're kind of like the ninja assassins, right? In what we do, we're like the Beverly Hills surgeons amongst all the other doctors in
Yep.
what we do, right? So
Specialists.
when we're specializing in one thing, it really, really stands out because we are able to help people really see clarity on the finish line, and then we can kind of reverse engineer backwards exactly what the outcome they want to achieve. And essentially, it's keeping more money in their pockets versus giving it away.
Yeah.
So,
Now, what kind of transformation do you see with your clients? Where do they start off,
Yep.
and then kind of where do they end off when they're working with
yeah. So most clients, to be honest, they don't know, they don't have any clarity on anything, right? They just know that they could position themselves better. They could get their finances in order better. People are kind of voyeuristic. Is that the right word? They're kind of voyeurs when it comes to different strategies and plans. And people go on Google, they search things, and I'll
Yep.
take you on a wild goose chase. People dive into the wormhole of, okay, let me look at this article and let me listen to this guy. And people take financial advice from people that aren't qualified to actually give it,
Right, right.
which is crazy, right? So
You know
I-
why? It's because they don't know better.
yeah,
So-
exactly. I started getting really, really passionate because I'm kind of like the cop in the financial world. I hate seeing people get screwed over.
Yeah.
And when you don't know the things that we teach people, it can actually hurt you. So when it comes to money, finance, most people's outcome, they're really, really happy about having the peace of mind, right? Knowing that they can actually grow their hard-earned income tax-free. That's a big kind of buzzword these days.
It is,
right?
it is.
Because We're not paying any less taxes as we're getting older, right? As
Right.
time goes on. But most people realize, okay, wow, this guy's not just saying, hey, let me just get your stuff. Tell me your scenario. Let me do it for you. I'm going to empower you with knowledge. So long after you leave one of my offices, you're going to be making way better decisions moving forward forever, right?
Yeah.
And so anytime you think about money, how can I navigate through these pitfalls? How can I keep more money for myself, for my employees, for my business? And how can I do all this tax-free? They're going to think of me, because no one in their lifetime, any advisor or confidant that they, relate to for finance,
Yeah.
they've never talked about that language, right? And most people, just because they have a title, they think that person has the moral authority to actually give them
Sure.
advice.
Sure.
And it's just not true. So for example, it's like you asking your primary doctor, hey, you know what, I have some, I'm going to get this, I'm in this huge accident. I'm just using like this gross analogy, and you need some facial reconstruction or something like that, right? You're not
Right.
going to have your primary doctor,
No.
do the work. You're going to go to a specialist.
Yep.
Right. And a lot of people say, well, since you have the title of doctor, it's like, let's say you're getting your teeth cleaned and you're like, hey, you know what? Since you're a doctor, you're a dentist. I got some like chest pain. Can you check me out, doc?
Yeah.
Wrong doctor. Right?
Exactly.
So
That's good. And specifically for business people, how do you help them kind of retain more of their income? Because a lot of business people, they want to eliminate taxes as much as possible.
absolutely.
And they want to retain more of their income. And one of the best ways to, not generate, but, have more of their wealth is by not giving it away, right?
Absolutely.
Especially to the government. So,
Absolutely.
talk me through that.
Yeah. So what we do is we utilize very specific strategies and instruments, right? Primarily insurance instruments, not because we care about the insurance, but we care about how those instruments are governed based on the tax codes that actually govern those instruments, right?
Yeah.
And these aren't new concepts. For business owners specifically, everything is driven by bottom line, right? What's my take home?
Yep.
When it comes to business owners, a big part of building a business is you, at least in the very beginning, right? So a lot of people don't realize, okay, well, I can't afford to not know these things, right? If I'm already struggling looking at my spreadsheets and looking at, my bottom line, how do I become more efficient, right?
Yeah.
How can I actually leverage? A key thing for business owners is about leverage. Where can I actually grab money? Like take, for example, if you have, let's say, a couple $100,000 sitting somewhere like in an investment, right?
Yeah.
Or even in your bank account. If you take any portion of that money out, then the remaining balance is basically diminished. So you
Yep.
have less compounding and growing for you, right?
Yeah.
I teach business owners how to leverage where they can actually borrow, right, essentially their money from their cash value account in these instruments. And say, for example, you have $100,000 sitting in your cash value account,
Yep.
and you want to use, let's say, $50,000 because you need it, like yesterday. You don't need to qualify for it. There's no penalties to touch it. There's no age restrictions, limitations. And when you take it out, $50,000, let's say you want to, I don't know, purchase another investment or do whatever you want to do with it.
Right.
Guess what? The remaining $100,000 is still going to be sitting in your account, growing and compounding as if you never took the $50,000 out.
Exactly. And that's what most people don't get. And they
Exactly.
don't understand that. Usually when people kind of have, life insurance policy of some sort,
Yeah.
they, from my perspective, most people get it because of death benefit, right? Somebody ends up passing away and they
Yep.
don't want to pay out of pocket to, pay for their death and graveyard and funeral and stuff like that. So, you show people how to utilize while they're living, which
Yeah.
is completely different.
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
Yeah, so there's a thing called living benefits. So I'm not the guy that people go to say, "Hey, what kind of coverage can you give me?" Right?
Right.
That's not the conversation I'm having with them. I'm talking to especially business owners. For example, I always ask business owners. I say, "Hey, look, you know what? What happens if you can't do work tomorrow or go to your business and perform tomorrow? What happens to your mode of income?"
Yep.
And that's a very kind of a dose of reality that most business owners they've thought about it, but they've never really figured out, well, what's the solution,
Yeah.
right? So instead of diving into our own assets, right, diving into our own resources, diminishing our own hard-earned income that we've worked so hard to compile, instead of using that, use what we call a living benefit. So therefore, basically, you're able to convert your death benefit into what they call a living benefit, right? So
Right.
you can use it while you're alive, right? So these days, Ulysses, the death benefit of these kinds of instruments are maybe second, third, fourth, maybe even fifth as far as reasons why they have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody cares. If you die, right?
Yeah.
So, but what about if you don't die? And you don't have a plan because you now physically cannot perform and do your business and work.
Yep.
What happens? Forget about retirement. Forget about your kids' college because you're now going to be dwindling assets. Taking maybe home equity out of your home or whatever.
Because you have no active income anymore because you're
Exactly.
you're unable to work.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't know that these living benefits aren't things that you have to actually pay extra for.
Yeah.
So they're very pleasantly surprised when they realize that they have a new bucket of resources over their head that they can tap into. And if they don't use it, they don't lose it either.
Right. Right.
So,
dude, that is powerful. Give us an example
Yeah.
Of someone that has utilized this and, just crushing it.
yeah, absolutely.
If you have one off the top of your head.
Yeah, I do. I have I have this a good friend of mine. He was a former real estate mentor of mine in real estate investments. He's killing it. He's making millions of dollars a year, and started to realize, you know what? I want to figure out how to utilize a different asset class. He's doing flips. He's got about maybe 6 or 7 flip projects at any given time.
Yeah.
And then he's using his plan that we designed really as like kind of his own bank, right?
Yep.
So he's putting about $250,000 a year into this sucker, and whenever he sees an opportunity, boom, he can access that cash. He can choose whether or not to pay himself back or not, and he loves that. He's really, really smart dude,
Yeah.
and realizes if you can't seize opportunities because you lack funding, you're dead in the water.
Right.
Right. So
You talked about something that is super, super crucial that I don't think many people know about.
Yeah.
And you said he uses it as if it's his own bank.
his own bank. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So walk us through, for people that probably don't know,
Sure.
you can kind of, what would happen if you did it as a family, right?
Sure.
How would you do that?
I'm sure you've heard, like many people have, these are concepts, right? BYOB, it's not bring your own beer. It's, be your own bank, right? Banking on yourself. You've probably even heard like infinite banking concepts, right?
Yep.
And so the whole thing, it is a concept. However, it's all premised based on whether or not, the actual plan or strategy was designed properly.
Right.
Because a lot of people say, well, you know what? Fine, give it to me, and cool. This is kind of a bank on yourself concept. Great. If it's not designed right, it's not like something you pull off the shelf. The product itself or the instrument itself doesn't work on itself.
True.
It has to be designed by someone who actually knows what they're doing. They have to understand the intentions of the individual, right?
Yep.
How far out? What I tell most everyone that I work with, my job is to design this properly for you. Your job is to fund this properly.
Yes.
So when we are both on the same page, it's a match made in heaven.
Now, let me ask you this, because this is from what I've heard.
Sure.
If you design it properly, the agent themselves or the person designing it actually doesn't get as big of a commission.
Correct. And this is one of the biggest, I want to say about 95, maybe even higher, 95% of all these policies and cases that are designed, they're not designed in the absolute best interest of the client.
100%.
There's reasons why people do that, and it's not malicious for the most part. I think agents and reps, they just do it because it's what the software allows them to do, and they're not having those really in-depth conversations. But you're right. Lesser death benefit, lesser, commission paid out to the agent.
Yeah.
I'd rather lose business than lose your trust.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if I'm not performing or doing my job to what your intentions are, how can you check me?
100%. Yeah.
You can't even verify if I did it right. So I have to sleep at night knowing that I did the right thing for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us this: if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, because obviously, let's say they have a policy or they're thinking about it, right? And obviously, I trust you. How can they get in contact with you? Are you open to providing audits and kind of reviewing stuff? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So you can easily find me. We have a website. It's called Extreme One Financial, without the E in front. XTRME. Number one financial.com. And then you can also find me on Instagram, social media, at Danny Singson 1, the number 1, and then Facebook as well, just Danny Singson.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, dude.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.